everyone, I go by Snowbee and I'm going to go through the not often talked about techniques to help you level up your tarot readings. In this context, I'm talking specifically about predictive or manifesting or problem solving types of readings, but these techniques can help you for all types of readings, including past lives, ancestor contact, spirit guide contact, which is kind of always a part of it. These 5 techniques are going to be practical things that you can do during the reading to make it better. Technique number 1 is to change the card's meaning depending on what question it is answering. This one is going in number 1 because if you click off this video after this one point, your readings will be infinitely better. What this means is that the way the card is showing up or communicating depends on whether we are asking a question that is negative or positive or neutral to the querent. I will use an example from the week ahead readings that I do. For example, we ask the cards to illuminate something we can rely on this week. So we draw the 7 of Swords. This card is notorious for being quite negative and indicating something amounting to lying or scheming or untruths. However, in the context of what the querent can rely on this week, depending on what's around it, this card actually means something more like you can rely on your cunning, your discretion, being on guard, and however it is that you do that. You may need to rest, like keeping the truth to yourself or being a little bit sneaky because maybe being honest could harm you as the querent. Another way, if we're reading it as something the querent can rely on, they can rely on the fact that people are all bluffing to a certain degree, or that the querent doesn't have to take anything that anyone is saying at face value. Let's do another example from my week ahead reading. So we are asking the cards to illuminate something we should be cautious about this week, but we draw the 10 of Cups. This is arguably one of the best, if not the best or most positive card in the tarot. It shows utter joy, euphoria, protection, connection, and basking in emotional peace and nourishment that is enduring and familiar. However, in the context of what the querent should be cautious about, and depending on what's around it, this card actually means something more like be cautious about indulging or getting lost in the good feelings. Similar to how drugs work, this could be escaping into an unhealthy but deeply gratifying experience with someone or something. This could be your close connections might be pulling you away from your development by encouraging you to give into unchecked hedonism or staying in your small pond near your home instead of expanding. It could even be caution about only doing what feels immediately gratifying and thinking anything not immediately fulfilling or anything challenging is not appropriate, but it is appropriate to do here. So these are ways where the question the card is answering drastically changes the way it is actually going to manifest in a reading without reversals or anything like that. This can be applied when good cards show up as attackers or bullies, or bad cards show up as how to make yourself happy. If you learn to think of each card in the context of positive, neutral, or negative, and base your readings of them in response to the questions or energies that are being posed, you will drastically make your readings more specific, pinpointed, and reflective of the situation in the querent's life. Technique number 2 is to nuance the card's meaning depending on where it sits in the spread. So location, order, and what cards flank another card in a reading are very important to that card's meaning, especially for intuitive pullers, but also for more systematic call and response reading. For example, cards at the top of spreads typically represent the visible, while the lower level is the invisible, unconscious, or even ancestral. Or if the lower level is the current, the upper level usually represents the higher or separate dimensional layer, or else what is trying to be achieved. You might spread cards all out in a line, but even then the cards are next to each other and telling a story by being next to each other. The best example is in the Queen of Swords facing the King of Wands. These cards are literally facing each other, and if side by side in a spread, more insight can be given as to how whatever these cards are showing up as interact with each other. So for example, we may have drawn intuitively, ending with the Queen of Swords about a new job and the money, after which we draw another group of cards beginning with the King of Wands to indicate the market. Now, not only are the 3 cards that we've now drawn about money, but they include the Queen of Swords. So it's saying something about clarifying yet empathizing without judgment about the job and about the money. And it's saying something indirectly opposed to the market. And in this case, the market is directly opposite, and it is including the King of Wands. So it's maybe spearheaded by the King of Swords energy, an energy of self-mastery, or the desire to break new ground, or maybe a cult of personality. And so as the Queen of Swords is looking at the King of Wands, the money and maybe the job is directly looking at and doing the Queen of Swords type of interaction with the market, which is kind of being embodied by the King of Wands in this scenario. Technique 3 is to almost never read cards in isolation. As a general rule, you can't get the full meaning of what a certain card means in a certain place in a certain reading by itself. That's why it's important to never read a card's meaning in isolation. So for example, if the 3 of Cups pops up in a reading, this can indicate a time of partying and merriment, but if it's the blockage in a reading, or it's otherwise maybe in a reading where you've got Temperance or the 8 of Pentacles on either side of it, it will be saying something very different about that merriment depending on these other cards or if it's representing a blockage. However, there are times when a card stands apart. So oftentimes these cards will show up as major arcana, but otherwise, even in the minor arcana, these cards might be the only card, let's say, of a different suit, or one of the only cards of a different polarity, right? And this polarity even applies to being the only positive card or being the only negative card in a spread. Or it can just be a card that sparks the querent's interest more than the other cards. Sometimes these cards are so powerful, so distinct, so different that they want your attention. They want you to focus more on what they mean, especially because they are breaking away from the rest of the spread to an extent. An example of this for me in my practice are 2s. So a 2 can often be explored alone in my practice, as well as with the spread, especially in a more structured reading. But 2s often need further unraveling and pondering and can bring up yet more cards to flesh out. So I take them out and really get the querent to dig into them in and of themselves, even before pairing them up with the rest of the reading. Technique number 4 is to pull a card or cards to represent the current situation or the current state of the querent. Although many spreads use a present situation card already, others don't, and sometimes reading intuitively can leave that out. Still others only ask about the querent specifically instead of the situation around the querent, and I find it helpful in both short and long readings to just have a card establishing what is the state of the situation or the person or the thing that we're pondering on or about. So oftentimes this card or cards will speak to the rest of the spread and tell us more about how connected or disconnected, how harmonious or disharmonious everything is. Just taking one more minute to pull for a descriptor card of the now helps set the stage to see why the plethora of cups haven't been grasped, by the 5 of Swords, or the fact that nearly all of them are yet to be experienced in the future, as we are in a 6 of Swords current moment and carrying this baggage with us. Technique number 5 is to redraw or do not pull. It is okay to not pull a card, especially if spirit and your guides or source prompts you to do so. Put a card to the side and tell the querent that this card is not for them, or just even don't explain it, leave the mystery there. Feel free to reset the spread because the energy feels off or the message feels funky. It does not look unprofessional, and it can oftentimes be necessary. In fact, this is necessary when dealing with resistant clients, when dealing with closed mouth clients, or when dealing with clients who are just so murky that they just have a constant stream of energy that can't seem to pinpoint around or seem to pull against where source is trying to put them. So if you redraw the cards, or you can even draw on top of the deck with a second deck if you have it, and the same cards show up some of the time, or an analogous card shows up, it shows you doubly that is the message for the querent, whether they're validating that message or not. And you can really hammer it home in confidence now that you have redrawn, pulled the spread, or put another spread on top of it. A lot of readers just don't give themselves permission to do a wipe or to just not pull that next card. But doing that can elevate and heighten the reading and, like I said before, heighten the ambiance around the reading, giving you extra backup at times. An example is when someone won't confirm the issue of the Two of Swords, right? And if I redraw and I get the Two of Swords again, I just let then the Two of Swords speak for itself. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope that this was helpful for you and helps you to bring more clarity and vision to your readings. Until next time.